I have flown in from Brownsburg, Indiana. Boy, my arms are tired. I'd like to welcome you to our seminar on live streaming and where it fits into the drag racing marketplace. We have the three top dogs here. Don't mean to call you dogs, but you're the top dogs in my eyes. Mark Walter, he's like the Henry Ford of live streaming. Brian Lohnes with Bangshift.com, along with Chad Reynolds. Worst mistake I ever made was letting him go cover Drag Week. I lost him forever. And Warren Evans that does D3 TV. And anytime I'm sure you tuned in on your computer to a live streaming drag race, is that just the greatest thing? It is for me. I mean, because in my man cave, we have a giant TV with streaming drag racing while we race slot cars. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. But anyway, with us in the media in drag racing as the editor and publisher of Competition Plus, we saw this day coming, and these are the guys that have taken it to the next level, starting with Mark Walter here. And Competition Plus regularly streams these three networks television as part of our Competition Plus TV program. So we're going to cover a few topics. First, we'd like to talk about how this all started. And to talk about how this got started, let's go to the man that, well, he started it. Mark, I guess like with us in the internet magazine age, when we were looking around for advisors, there was nothing for you. Tell us about how that happened.
Well, actually, Jimmy Biggs came to me. Some of you may remember Your Way Network. That was about 10 years ago. 2006 is when we started. And
Turn the mic switch on.
it's on.
Yes, there you go. I just go straight into it. Go straight.
Okay.
Keep talking.
All right, keep talking. Anyways, I can talk about, I'm a preacher, so I can talk about it anyway. But, and he came to me and he said, hey, we want to do this thing live on the internet. And I'm like, well, okay. I said, it's going to take, we're going to have cameras, we're going to have all of these various things. And have been involved with my church.
There you go.
And they were starting to do stuff on the internet as well. And so we came together with a solution. There was no live stream. There was no Ustream. There was no, YouTube was like this big in 06, okay? I mean, it was just a video. And so we went, okay, started with Windows Media Server, and that tops out at about 900 people is all you could really have on there in concurrent. And so we went from that, and then the Flash stuff really started to take off. We moved to that in 07. Jimmy came out of the TV world. He went back to TV. I went to school and kind of sat in idle for a couple of years, and then got involved with the ADRL in late 09, doing some live audio stuff for those guys. And then in 2010, working with Steve Brine at, what's the name of his company? I can't remember. Anyways, we started streaming the ADRL from our very first event was in Martin, Michigan. And then it's kind of gone from there. We've worked with various groups over the years, and to where we're now in a full-on production type of environment where we deploy multiple cameras. Depending on the event, we can have up to 7 or 8, and that's everything from the tower to the top end. So it's very similar to what Brian gets to do sometimes with the folks over at Fox.
Sure.
And of course, they still have a lot of things that they can do there that we don't because of the dollars involved in it. But, so that's kind of the short history, I guess, is probably the best way to put it.
Very well put. Brian, I can't think of another person alongside of me that has their hand on the pulse of drag racing is quite like you do. Tell us of the status of the industry today.
Yeah, well, I think to me, and those of you that don't know, Brian Lohnes from Bangshift.com. I also work a lot with Cammy's back there, do some stuff for the NMCA and MRA. I'm an announcer for the NHRA. I do a lot of independent races across the country, do some television stuff. So really, from the months of January to basically this month, pretty much every weekend I'm somewhere in some form of the sport. lot of people look at drag racing, they just look at the NHRA and say that's what the status report, that's what the health of the sport is, and it's a very myopic view. It's the wrong way to view what this is. And the size of what drag racing is, the size of this industry, needs to be viewed on a whole. And on a whole, this is a very, very healthy sport. I know for a fact from being from the NMCA and NMRA races last year, car counts are way up, spectator counts are up. You look at races like Outlaw Streetcar Reunion, they're packing the stands. You look at what's going on in the no-prep realm. What you've seen in this sport in the last 15 years is the whole thing has fragmented, and not necessarily in a bad way. It's fragmented into all these pieces, which are pretty good-sized chunks, actually, that fit the actual needs and the expectations and the interest of the participants. Whether we're talking about guys like Don that are running Top Sportsman, Top Dragster, there's all kinds of series around the country outside of the mainstream that are running those things. So in my eyes, I haven't been around the sport quite as long as these guys, because clearly, I'm the youngest guy up here. Clearly, from where I'm sitting right now, the sport is in a very, very healthy place.
Thank you. Warren, let's talk about the truths of content streaming and follow that up with the misconceptions about content streaming.
Well, actually, I'm going to defer that question to Brian, because that's the very first thing we talked about when we put this seminar together, was talking about misconceptions about streaming and some of the touch points of what are fundamentals, and then what people think about live streaming, which there could be completely off base with. So I'm kicking it back to you. I'll take the next one.
Okay, because I was coming back to it.
Okay. Well, I think the truths are, and all these guys can agree and speak to this, is the truths are, you're reaching a global audience right off the bat. There is no boundary to who can tune in on your stream. I mean, I guess if you're in North Korea, then they've limited the internet, you're going to have trouble getting there. But other than that, you're going to get viewers, and it's the truth. I mean, we see stats. We did the Redemption No Prep race last weekend. We look at our analytics, and the analytics say people from 130 countries watch there. Now, the majority of those people are in North America, they're in Australia, they're in the western end of Europe, and Ireland and England, Canada, north of us, obviously. But the end of the day is you're reaching a global audience. I did a seminar the other day, a marketing seminar, where somebody asked, what's the best way for him to get in touch with his audience, his customers in Australia? And I said, well, first off is the internet, because people from Australia, they're reading the internet as well. And, one of the biggest truths I think I can pass along, the March Meet is a nostalgia drag race we do out in Bakersfield, California every year. And it was one of the first races we started to do. And there was some initial resistance from the promoter there for obvious reasons. He's like, well, people are going to watch this and no one's going to buy a ticket and come in the gate. And that's misconception one, which I'll double back on. But once we did that a couple years, we had people in the pits walk up to us, guys from England, we had people from Iceland, we had people from France stop us and tell us that they were at the race because they were able to watch it. And people crave the ability to see this stuff. And, we all do this in a different way. I mean, Warren and Mark have a great technological background in this stuff. They know exactly what they're doing. Chad and I's solution is a more budgetary-based solution. It's a lower buck deal, but the one uniting factor of all of it is that people want to see it, and they're way less judgmental watching a live stream than they are watching a broadcast television show. And there are multiple reasons for that, but a couple misconceptions are, if I'm a track promoter, I'm going to lose ticket sales. There are ways to stop that. If that is a real, genuine concern that you're going to lose out on 100, 200 seats, 200 tickets sold through the gate, there's geo-blocking options. That's one of the things that the March Meet asks us to do. They're in Bakersfield, California. They pull for that Southern California audience. They want us to build kind of a blackout wall around the track. We can do that. We can kind of offset that concern. I guess the second kind of misconception is that you need to have, and there's nothing wrong with having a high-value production. That's not the point I'm trying to get here. But the second kind of misconception is, well, it needs to be this whiz-bang awesome thing. If you can pull off a whiz-bang awesome thing, more power to you, because it looks fantastic. But at the end of the day, somebody wants to be able to sit and listen to the race. And how you deliver that to them, as long as they get that experience, they're going to enjoy it more if they can roaming cameras and all kinds of cool stuff going on, but at minimum, if they can see it and be part of it, they are not going to judge you on what the quality is. There's a lot of tracks around the country that are doing this themselves now with just a fixed camera at the starting line, and it seems insane, but there will be people that will sit there and watch it for 8 hours at a time.
Let me jump in here. Adding to what you're talking about, the countries that are watching this, with your network of affiliates of different publications that also embed that stream, you also gain their viewership as well, outside of your own deal, which expands that.
Well, 100%. Yeah, it's like it really is a form of social media. That's basically what this is, and you amplify it the same way you amplify any sort of social media by sharing it and distributing it as much as you can.
Yes, and as he was talking about Australia, that's our number 3 most read market behind Canada and the United States. All right, Warren, since you dumped me on the last question, you gotta.
And I shouldn't have done that since I wrote the question.
Yes, I'm helping.
Beginning. But
What's the misconceptions out there?
well, I think that Brian touched a lot on it, and one misconception is that some lay people just think this is really easy to do. It's not. It's not. I mean, the technology is there. It certainly is. And it's a heck of a lot easier today than it was 10 years ago when Mark was doing it, or even 5 years ago when Brian was doing it. I really got into it late in the game. We did our first D3 TV production at the end of 2014. And, most of the parts and pieces were there already. But beyond, going and buying all those parts and pieces, there's a lot more to it than that. You have to think through the process of how a viewer would watch it. Not necessarily what's the easiest thing for you, but how, if you were going to sit at home, what would you want to see? Do you want to see starting line shots? Do you want to see long range? All those types of things. And then to build that within the confines primarily of the budget. I'm a one-man show, as is Brian or Chad, and sometimes they tag team it, but generally it's one guy. Mark has a much higher production value, but he may have 3 or 4 or 5 people on the ground operating cameras outside. So, but the misconception that it's easy, that's kind of a big one. Our production day, I know for me, I get to the track at least 90 minutes in advance of when we light the stream up, and I'm there, an hour after, and then you do that on Saturday, and then you do that on Sunday. So you're spending, 40 plus hours in the chair trying to do that, and you got to watch every pass and make sure that you're doing all your production switches and those kinds of things. So it's easier, but it's not as easy as it used to be.
Oh, it's easy. Everybody can do it, right? Well, this is a perfect Mark question, if I've ever seen a Mark question. Why is streaming so important to the promoter, track owner, or race series? Why is it important to them?
From an advertising perspective, it is probably one of the least expensive things with the biggest reach that you'll have, especially when you look at all of our streams are recorded. Everybody can go back and look at them. So when we include jigs or a summit or those types of commercials that are embedded in the video, which no one has control over what we do in our production other than us. So if we insert a commercial, then that's something that the promoter wanted or the track or what have you. But from a promotional perspective, it allows a great visibility. You put on a great race, people are going to see that. If it's a bracket race, we do a lot of bracket races, and they're going, wow, this is good. The people are treated fair. It's run quickly. It's run efficiently. It drives more people to come and participate in that particular bracket event. On the heads-up stuff, we do a lot of that as well. They're sitting there going, wow, this is really cool, but I can't smell the cars, okay? I can't smell the smoke. And they said, but it drives them to that. I've had this discussion with Donald Long over the last several years, and he does the 2 small tire radio races down in South Georgia. And he was concerned, and I said, Donald, I said, I'm telling you, there's no evidence out there that supports this is really going to have a negative impact on the game. And at the spring race, well, the lights out 7 that on Saturday, they closed the gates. They crashed the cell towers because of people watching at the track. And we do stuff, when we're in South Georgia, we do stuff mostly on satellite down there because that's really the only consistent thing that happens. And so that whole myth about it impacting the gate, I mean, we blocked 2 exits coming off the interstate going into that track. And the only other place I've ever seen that happen was with Kenny Nelling in the NHRA. And that's happened the last 2 races where they didn't have to close the gate this last time, but they had so many people that they're like unbelievable. I mean, it's one of those things where even the concession stands are like, we didn't have enough food, so they're out buying stuff.
Well, let me ask you about the racers.
Yeah, exactly. This is a big part of it too. Kind of add on to what Mark's talking about. He's talking about impact on the front gate, and it doesn't harm that, but it helps at the back gate. I firmly believe that racers are more interested and willing to go race at a track that is providing live streaming as a part of the event. We can see that in car counts in Division 3. Those car counts are climbing, and the feedback we're getting is because, hey, we're on TV. We can go out and we can keep our family engaged. We can keep our sponsors engaged. Part of that is eliminating barriers to participation is what it really comes down to. For me, we're helping grow race cars by eliminating those barriers. A racer wants to participate, but sometimes they're even forced to make a choice whether to go to the racetrack or not because of the barrier of keeping their family interested or keeping their friends interested or the possibility of getting a sponsor. We're helping to eliminate those barriers. Family can stay home, but they can still watch and they can still be a part of it. Friends can now be engaged in that. Sponsors now can see the money they're spending is actually being used on the track. And what type of presentation the racer makes, that's kind of up to them, of course, how well they carry themselves and the product they present. But anytime that we can eliminate barriers to help racers get to the racetrack, we're doing a good thing, I think.
Well, I believe the 3 of you are absolutely following my friend Wes Buck's lead of making drag racing again. Now, from a sponsor standpoint, how does this live streaming help? This is a Brian question.
Yeah, well, I think if you're a racetrack operator, I think you got to look at this in a very holistic way. So let's use Bakersfield as an example. They got a Budweiser sign the size of the back wall of this room behind the starting line. Now, that Budweiser sign has a lot of value for the 5,500, 6,000 people that track seats, but when there's a couple 100,000 people over the course of a weekend tuned in to watch the March meet, that sign's way more valuable. And I think the sponsorship end of things, it's very much 2 ways. It can't just be the guys spinning the video cameras telling these guys, hey, there's more value here. Everybody has to get on the same train or get on the same track and understand this elevates, it's the whole rising tide, raises all ships type of value here. And it doesn't matter what track you're at or where you're going. I think, Tulsa Raceway Park's a track that we do a lot of stuff with, and those guys are ace promoters, and they understand the value of it. They work a lot with the Osage Casino in that area, and I know for a fact that they've been able to strengthen their partnerships with Osage because they know Osage knows that their name is getting just beat into dust over the course of the weekend over the PA. It's going out there. They're running their live reads, all the different promotions they have going on. So from an advertiser, the basic answer is, of course, more people see the advertising, but I think the deeper issue, the deeper movement needs to be everybody understanding that this needs to be a partnership working together. The track needs to understand when they're making their sales, this is a selling tool for them. It's not just us saying we want to come do your race. You should be looking at us like, hey, cool, they want to come to my place. I mean, this is a big deal.
Amen. Let me ask the audience here. How many have done live streaming on Facebook? So that's a good many. With that said, and with the relative ease of doing personal live feeds, where does this impact the whole industry? And I would like to have a brief response from the 3 of you, starting with Brian.
To me, I think it's a good thing on a couple levels. One, I think it familiarizes more people with it. The more time, the easier the access is to this, the expectation gets more embedded into people. You know, there is an expectation now when you're going to a race, like Warren was saying, it's a little bit of a letdown to a racer if he's going to a race that he feels is a premier event, and it's not going anywhere outside of the walls of the racetrack. And multiple reasons for that, mostly these two guys for all the work they've done over the years, but also because now I can stream from anywhere with my phone. I think that the second kind of part of it is that I think it reinforces the work that we do or whoever's out streaming an event does, that it's not the easiest thing in the world, and that some stuff has more value than others. You know, Mark, you know, your Lights Out race last year, was it Lights Out or the Redemption? Yeah. The thing was gazillion and a half people watching that, and it's not always that way.
No.
You know,
Oh no.
If you know, and you can probably speak a little bit more to that, but I think it's great for the industry, and I think it's great for everything we do because again, it sets the expectation that it's the norm.
Warren?
I think as far as the value goes, I think that's the biggest thing that we try to explain to people. From the racer's perspective, from the promoter's perspective, from the track's perspective. I mean, we actually watch people. We've streamed IHRA, the Pro-Ams, and some of their national events, as well as the PDRA, the ADRL, and everything else. And we have watched tracks and promoters go in and clean up the track, repaint, just like what they do for TV at NHRA, because they want to put their best foot forward. So for a small investment, you know, when you talk about the average race may run $3,000 or $4,000 for us to come in and produce, the value that you get in that in advertising is phenomenal. It really does. We've gone to small tracks. We went to a track on, well, of course we go to a Mockley, and hopefully we'll start there this year with the IHRA. But, you know, we go to these small tracks that never get any visibility. And they'll call us or they'll email us later and say, hey, you know, when you guys show what we do here, people have this misconception about, well, we're just this little track and we don't do that much. But then they saw the event that we put on and it was like, oh, wow, so now our car count has been impacted positively, which is the whole reason we're doing this, okay? We want to grow drag racing. I mean, I've been in the sport for over 40 years, and I've seen it kind of do this. And so we want to see it come about, like what Wes says, let's make drag racing great again.
You know, what happens on Facebook Live or Periscope or whatever those social media things, those are just an enhancement to the kinds of things we're doing. You would not expect somebody to sit there with their phone and do 12 hours of pass after pass. But if they can help capture some eyeballs and get them pointed in the right direction to that live stream so that the viewer can get the full impact of the entire event, that is a great thing. But just in general, positive exposure in any way that you can get it is a good thing. Now, every once in a while we get some knucklehead who wants to get out on the starting line with his phone and do some periscoping during the middle of a round. Not pointing at anybody.
Not calling anybody's name,
No. Yeah. Just ask Oliver what you do. So, but in general, any of that is positive, and really that is all a part of the growth of the thing. Getting people interested in our sport. You know, if you can't, drag them to the drag strip to get the experience, this is the best way to get our sport, our passion to them, to get them engaged.
And again, just one last point on that. It's all, again, an amplification. We talk about the social media end of things. If you got 50 people at this event running around with their Facebook Live telling everybody how cool it is, when they sign off their Facebook and they go, keep watching on Bankshift, or keep watching on Motormania, or keep watching on D3. Cammy last year, we were live streaming events at NMCA, and she'd be on the starting line doing some Facebook Live through their Facebook page. And we would see it. I mean, we would see the bump from her being down there. When she would sign off, she'd tag us and tell people to come watch, and we'd watch it work. So again, none of this stuff is an independent bucket of each other. It all feeds itself.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I was going to mention that if anybody, maybe you guys could get the announcers to announce this. If you do a live on your Facebook, tell people where they can see it all day long and everything. Would you guys be open to answering some questions from the audience?
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody got any questions? Somebody's going to have a question. Don, you got it. Okay. Yes, sir.
You know, we're streaming is becoming more and more accessible to do and to also watch. How do you navigate through race series still paying so much money for television deals?
I think, I think, and you guys will answer this too, but, my opinion on stuff like this, the changes happen from north to south, right? And I think we look at, NASCAR is the golden example of all this automotive media stuff. It's the biggest, giantest dog in the room. So when we look at the value of what their TV deal is and what it's going to be when they sign the new one and where it is, I think that's when you're going to, I think to me that's the bellwether. And typically outside of Mark and outside of Warren, I mean, we don't really deal with any series so much. We deal with a lot of local promoters and we deal with a lot of regional type of stuff. So we really don't have that hurdle to climb. These guys maybe do more than we do.
You guys have anything?
You have to add to that? I mean, you work with NHRA, and NHRA. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a slippery slope to kind of jump in for me because, NHRA D3 TV would kind of imply that I'm part of the big series. I really have kind of a arm's length affiliation with them. And I am impacted by what's going on with TV because at this point, I don't really know what's going to happen with, Big Fox doing the pro show, and then All Access, what they're going to do with that. I mean, in theory, they could come along and say, D3 TV, thanks, but we got it from here. That can happen at any time. We don't have that sort of contractual, committed relationship as to what's going to happen. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. My personal hope is that we can come up with a program where we can expand it to all 7 divisions. Those racers in all 7 divisions are really wanting it as part of that. But, the TV deal with Fox and NHRA, I think it's fair to say it didn't turn out quite like they expected it to. It's good quality, but I think they ran into some personnel, logistics, dollar issues that might not have been expected. That's probably a fair way to say that. So, is that a good way to put that down?
It seems to be getting a lot more expensive as time goes on for those kind of deals, so it almost looks like a floodgates get ready to open up.
Well, and I think, and Mark and I have talked about this, is, how much does it cost you per set of eyeballs that are watching your stream? We're doing it for pennies per eyeball. Big Fox, with their deal, it's, closer to dollars per eyeball. It's a great product. Don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic product. And Brian's one of the voices and faces of that, and will be this coming year. Actually, congratulations to Brian, because you're going to be doing the full tour this year with NHRA. That's a fantastic thing.
That was supposed to be a secret. Not anymore.
He put it on Facebook. I read it.
Put it on Facebook.
I read it on the internet. It must be true.
There you go. Bonjour. I think one of the things that and we go back and we talk a little bit, let me kind of go back to the misconceptions, is that streaming is not TV, okay? It's not meant to be TV. So that's one of the things that when we talk to someone who has never done it, it's like we can do a lot of things like TV, but you're not going to find anything live on TV for, well, we have streamed up to 19 and a half hours, okay? You're not going to find that anywhere. And so when you look at the dollar cost, okay, and you compare what TV charges and what we may charge, it's wholly different. We're talking pennies on the dollar. It really is. So.
I think the other thing too is, with TV, the weird thing that's going to happen over the next few years, I think anyway, is there is going to be this intersection or car accident, however you want to say it, the two worlds really kind of coming together. And television is a packaged thing, right? When we watch TV, we have an expectation that something's a half hour long, an hour long, 3 hours long. When we sit down and watch a live stream, there's no telling. We've done the Streetcar Super Nationals where we start at 8 o'clock in the morning, and at 3 a.m. we're loading up the stuff at night, and the thing's been on the whole time. So what is the end package going to look like? Because you can't do that on television. And clearly, if any of us had, our wits about us, we wouldn't be doing it for 20 hours a day either. So what does it end up looking like? I think that's going to be the most interesting thing.
That 9 a.m. to 3 a.m., that was one session, right?
That was Sunday. That was a single deal.
Yes.
Quick question on lessons learned. So for somebody that's only been doing live stream for a short amount of time, and you guys have been doing them a long time, kind of what have you learned and aha moments maybe too for live stream?
That's
Wow, how can I summarize that? I think the biggest thing that we have learned is that because there's no book on how to do this, that a lot of the times you end up, you test and you try things. And I will spend almost as much time off the small screen doing research and development. And you have to find what works for your venue. I mean, drag racing is pretty straightforward. The mold is out there. We're hoping to get involved in some road course, road race stuff here this next year. And so that's going to be a different thing. So we're going to have to look out there and see what's going on. Live streaming is a lot like television in the 50s and 60s, okay? It's not going to be perfect just because it's on the internet, first off, all right? And we know that everybody's connection is different. There is an expectation in television in the 20-teens that they didn't have in the 50s and 60s, even the 70s, because the technology didn't exist. We don't control everybody's computer. So one of the things is that when somebody says, hey, it's not working here, you go, well, you have to say, well, what kind of connection are you on? What are you using for a computer? How are you watching it? I mean, these are all the things that we do. And the biggest thing is test. Find what works for the environment that you're in, because what we do in drag racing may not work in the road course stuff. Maybe parts of it will, parts of it won't. So to me, that's the biggest thing, is that you have to constantly test. You have to constantly look for better ways to do things.
One of the things too is to look at your analytics and see how people are viewing your program. What browser? Are you on the latest version of the browser?
Yeah, I mean, for us on the bank shift side, being the kind of small outfit that we are, the biggest lessons we learned were that the stuff that we thought was going to be a complete home run was not. And stuff that we thought we were taking a big risk on going to do and maybe laying ourselves out financially a little bit to get there was way better than we could have expected. So I think keeping your expectations tempered, right? Because I think everybody that's ever been involved in the internet, every once in a while thinks you got the world by the tail, baby, when everybody sees this, and then you're like, why does nobody care about this? So the second thing would also be that relationship development is the single biggest thing that has come out of us doing this stuff, and I think these guys would agree. The races that we've been able to kind of stake our claim on for a couple of years, the tracks that know us enough to say, hey, we're putting something together for next year, please put us on your schedule, that's where it's at. And that again comes to that great back and forth you got to have with the promoter, the operator of the series.
One of the things I want to follow up on what you said about the things you think was going to be a home run and everything. We could spend all this exorbitant amounts of money doing a finely produced video to use in your downtime on there, a video feature, and it bombs. And then some dude with a camera on his phone just sticks it up there, and he's got like a gazillion views. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So that's one of the things you can relate to. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. Brian really hit on relationships. All three of us, we're all doing the same thing in the same marketplace, and we're friends. We exchange ideas, and the very first lesson I learned is when I was first starting to do this, I got a hold of Chad and I got a hold of Mark and said, hey, I'm getting ready to do this. Can you give me some pointers here? So, I still have half a garage full of stuff I bought that I thought would work. Yeah.
eBay is your friend.
eBay is your friend, that's right. eBay is your friend in this business, but build relationships with people that have been there before, because we do work together. Yes, sir.
So I'm just curious on the tech side, have you experimented much with like mobile cameras or remote control cameras in your live
I am not. The one thing I do have, and you know, I'm a one-man show, and I work out of the tower of the venue that I'm at. I do have some long-range wireless stuff that's down track, but as far as pan, tilt, zoom, I have not built anything that works. But then again, when you start operating things like that, it takes people, frankly. And I'm limited to 1 or 0. So.
Address drums.
Well, and that's one of the things too, is that we do actually have a pan tilt zoom camera, but it's not in an active environment. We just utilize it because it's easy for the place we're using it at. One of the guys that works with us, Tony Reese out of Eventcast, has some pan tilt zoom cameras, and they're not like the stuff that Fox has. Okay, where the guys are they're literally in the trailer with a set of handles and a zoom control and a monitor in front of them, and you can watch it, and it's literally like you're operating the camera on the scaffolding. And that's now when you start talking about that stuff, you're talking about high end, really high end stuff. So in our environment, the prosumer environment, it's not something that's really viable. I guess is the best way to put it.
I've occasionally felt like a robot turning the camera, but that is as close as we've come to that.
That kind of drifts into the TV realm, and you know we're not really there. It's like running fuel cars at your local track every week. But anyway, Don.
My question is going to go to the side of the cost. You both, all three of you, obviously about promotion. You can't operate your websites or the live streams without promotion, sponsors, and promoters. So you want to have an integrated plan. You're pitching that plan to the promoter, and then you expect the promoter, the racetrack official, and their staff to take that plan and add it to their plan and pitch it to their sponsors to get them involved to help offset costs and justify you being there. Where's the cost per impression come in when you sit down and say, this is what the ROI is for having our live stream or being involved with us and having us at your event from your standpoint? Because we all know that internet's cheap. Operating the stream's not. But we need to have, analytics is a horrible word, metric to be able to say, this is what it's worth, this is what it costs you, this is what you gain. Where's the
So what Don's asking, just to amplify the question here, what Don's asking is, you know, if you're talking to a track operator, how are you justifying what this may cost the track operator to do? How are you going to tell this guy you're going to monetize it this much, blah blah blah? Speaking directly for myself right now, not a conversation I've ever had, and at this point, I can't say that I can look someone in the face and say, you know, this is worth 68 cents a ticket, or this is worth 81 cents a ticket, or what.
Okay.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the things that I've searched through the industry to try and find a formula or some type of a metric that we can utilize. And the best thing is that people through either how many people are watching it. I mean, the average bracket race that we do, 50 to 100,000. That's huge over a 2 or 3 day event. So, but for me to go and say, okay, well, what is it worth? If I spend 25 minutes, my average view time is 25 minutes, then I have equated to what television is. So, you know, but again, there's no metric out there. There's nothing that's been developed for people to say, okay, this is what the value is of a stream to you as a promoter or to a sponsor. And that's one of the things that's difficult in the financial end of this, is quantifying it.
You know, to add to that is that all three, it's basically a matter of going to your own analytics and looking at that, and then you reach out to your partners who are your affiliate broadcasts, get their analytics on what those pages were, and just kind of.
Yeah, and I'm just to go back to it because one, we've had this discussion before.
Sure.
That I love NHRA All Access because for the sportsman guys, it's the only TV time that every guy gets to be able to go down, and it's not TV time, but it is in a video format that you can capture and show. This is what the cost per impression is back to a sponsor. You can justify some ROI to it. The flip side to that is that when you try to justify what that value is back to increase when
Sure.
the viewership numbers aren't released. No one knows how many people were watching. Nobody knows what the average viewership time frame is. And you're handcuffed by the sanctioning body for that.
Sure.
So you're downgraded at best to be able to help bring more sponsors to the table and say, hey, do you want to be involved? You know, we sponsor numerous in the past few years with Warren, his live stream, because there is value to us and we know what the viewership is.
Right, and again, to go with just so that you can all hear what Don's saying here, is he's saying, if there's a sanctioning body that's having their own live stream going out and there's no analytics for a racer or a track promoter to be able to grow on that, if they can't go to the sanctioning body and say, how many people watch this and get an answer, then I agree, that's a problem. And I think for us anyway, and I think most of the people that are doing this independently now, that's a huge part of that relationship. The huge part of the relationship is sharing those numbers with the track operators, with the people paying the bills. All three of us, it's interesting because all three of us are in a little bit different situation of how we actually approach a track or how we actually do this. In the case of Mark, he'll strike a deal with the track operator, with the promoter, cover his costs, they'll sell sponsorship to do it. In the case of Bank Shift, we have advertisers that advertise with us to basically offset the cost to anybody for us to be there to do this. Warren, you're working with the D3 and you're doing the same thing. You're beating the bushes to get the funding out to do this.
Yeah, that's right. And, our first 2 years have really been more or less a loss leader. We're trying to build an audience, trying to build something that we can then expand to the other 7 divisions. So, it's not fair to look at, what I charge, what we try to generate in revenue, because it's a completely different model. It may morph to something more like what the 2 of them are doing at some point here in the near future. But again, some of that is driven by what NHRA at the top level in Glendora is going to do. So anyway, Don, I'm going to move back here. You have a question, sir?
Actually, it's not a question. I can help you out a little bit. I'm with Speed Shift TV as a disclaimer. And we do what you do, except in circle track, where we do a lot of dirt track racing and stuff like that. And some statistics that we found, we do marketing studies, and we found that if you talked about a geo-block, I just want to talk about that for a second, because that always comes up with streaming. And we've found through surveys of people who watch our stream that more than 92% of the people that watch a stream that are within a 2-hour radius of the track do so because of work constraints. They're either at work, they have to be at work early, they're at work late, whatever the reason, but 92% and another 4% do it because of health reasons. And so if you do a geo-block, you're actually losing a portion of an audience that cannot physically be at the track. And so you're actually able to show them your product anyway, no matter where they are. And there's, we do a lot of stuff in the Midwest. There's guys in farm tractors riding in the field not too far from the track, and they're watching on their iPad. And so you're reaching an audience that's not going to be at the track anyway. You're not losing people out of the gate whenever somebody streams your event. That was one thing. The other thing we found out, and I can address what you asked about monetizing, we found that our audience, we do it differently in circle track. We do a pay-per-view. So people pay to watch our broadcast, and then we split that profit with the track, which is a totally different thing than what you guys do with drag racing. But we found that of our audience, for every purchase made of our broadcast, there's an average of almost 7 people watching that broadcast. And so we use that to monetize advertising on our broadcast. So we know our audience, we know the size of our audience, we know about how many people are watching, but we also, because it's a pay-per-view, it takes us into a lot of bar situations where we do more of a TV-style production. But a lot of bars, there's, I can name a number of them that put us up on like 11 screens in their bar. And so you're going to get a couple hundred people watching just a single purchase price or purchase point on that. So that's totally different than what you guys are doing in that regard.
Preach on, man. Preach on.
I gotta watch live streaming while I'm on my lawnmower. That's tractor dude. That's cool.
We had 2 guys in deer stands watching our last broadcast from Piedmont. One guy got a deer, said, I gotta go. He just dropped it. It was like a 10-putt or 8-point drive or something. So, and the other guys were good, send one my way, because I'm waiting.
I was wondering what you guys do about internet connections. We're in a rural area a lot of times where we're at, a lot of fairgrounds and those sorts of things, and just people getting internet from A to B or not even having the speeds available? Well, what are some solutions you guys have came up with?
Good man on this one.
He's the king.
Oh, goodness. When we started, there was very little internet. There was no 3G. It was bad. I guess it was second generation. We use a myriad of things. We don't use any terrestrial stuff at the track. We bring our entire solution. And we have contracts with all of the major cell carriers. We also have satellite. And there are places that we go where if you don't have satellite, you cannot stream. Satellite's a big investment, okay? I mean, depending on what you want to do, it's anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000 for the equipment, and then finding the right partner as far as a satellite company out there to work with. So, and then when you get into what it costs to stream in HD, then it gets more expensive. So that's one of the things that we have found. We bring our own, okay? And over the years, when somebody calls us and say, hey, can you come stream? I'll say, well, let me look at everything. And one of the first things I do is I go to the 4G maps and I see what's there. And then I look at the cell structure in that area and I'll make a determination, okay, I think this will support that. If it's close enough to not a huge town, but something where you're going to have a lot of people using it, then it's like, okay, they've probably got enough bandwidth. But there's other places you go where you know there's no way they're going to have enough bandwidth, so you have no choice but to use satellite. So it's been a lot of different connections for us over the years.
And what I've realized is if you have a grandstand that holds 12,000 people, you could work fine up to half hour before the event. All of a sudden, everyone gets in there, they want to share too, and it's gone.
Yeah, with what we do with Division 3, it's a combination of trying to use the track's provided internet. And again, I have an advantage that I work out of the tower as opposed to along track side, so I can generally connect. But like Bowling Green, Kentucky, love the place, but it's like 2 tin cans and a string down there to try to get internet in there. So it's a combination for us between what the track provides us with internet or cellular. Cradle Point, I use Cradle Point equipment for cellular connections, but you're right.
You guys are using like a bonded connection, I mean?
Yes, that's what I do.
Even with a bonded connection though, if there's only so much cell bandwidth out there, that's the problem. When we go to South Georgia, especially when we do the outlaw races down there, you can get away with cell for a day or two of that because it's a big event, it's 5 days. But the last 3 days, if you're not on satellite, it is not going to be streamed. That's just the long and the short of it. We have watched people not be able to send text messages down there because the cell towers have, the vendors, they couldn't get their cube or their whatever to work and sell stuff to the people. And that's just the limitation of some of the facilities that you go to. So.
Does the satellite, and I was at one of the same venues with Josh this year, we do audio right now. We're looking at getting into streaming, but we do live audio. I got there early that morning, and everything worked fine. Just like you said just before. Does the satellite keep the amount of people, like the Bowling Green, 60,000? You have 60,000 people using a cell phone. Does the satellite still stop that from drawing your...
Yes, I mean the satellite is, depending on your connection, I mean it's literally going to whoever your provider is, in geostat at 25,000 miles or whatever it is that they've got that thing in orbit. It goes down to their station. We happen to use a company out of Utah, and then from there it goes to actually goes to the West Coast, and then it's distributed out from there. So yeah, when we use satellite, it's taken completely out of the cell network. We'll still monitor, because we have a chat. We've got to keep an eye on the chat because every once in a while I get these crazy people in there. And ours is a family G-rated chat. I mean, that's very, very big for us. I have granddaughters, and I want them to be able to get on there and look at that and go, well, why did he say that? What's that mean, Grandpa? And we're not going to do that. I mean, and there's enough of that out there without adding to it.
Gentlemen, we got for 2 more questions. We got 2 more questions.
Well,
This gentleman.
Let me jump in here before we get to your question. I had Don hand out this drag racing scene magazine. One of the reasons is all 3 of our companies were interviewed in that, and well, I'd like to thank, we'd all like to thank Todd Sylvie, Drag Racing Scene Magazine, for putting that together, so we want to provide you with a copy of that.
Gentleman in the back here, had a question. Okay.
How exactly do you geo-block, and when should you use it?
So speaking to what we do it through our streaming provider. So like Livestream's a company we use, and we use their technology to do that. That's something that we contact and work directly with the provider on. When should you do it? For us, the only time we ever do it is when the track operator demands that we do it. And that doesn't necessarily mean it should never be done or whatever your preference is, but the only time we go to that option is when the difference between us being there and not being there is the track operator telling us we got to do it.
What's that to?
It's for us. It's in Southern California at a track, Famoso Raceway in Bakersfield, and he's very concerned that that track's located about an hour and a half outside of LA, and he's concerned about stealing away from his audience there. Again, it's not. We've never had that.
You give them like a sneak peek for about an hour and then shut it down?
No, we announced when we announced we're going to be doing that race. When we talk about any press we do for that race, we put it right dead nuts top of the press release that you will not be able to see that it's this if you live in a whatever it is 100-mile, 150-mile range of the race. We're very forward about it, very clear about it. So to us, the best way to deal with it was just go head on at it and say, hey, here's the deal. And the track had no. And the facility had no problems with us saying, because of the wishes of the facility, that's why we're doing this.
Thank you.
Got time for one more question?
Yeah, with live streaming, a lot of times it's either hit or miss, at least with my experience. What do you guys do about lackluster productions, and how do you deal with that with advertisers? When they happen,
I would say, we've had discussions with people in the past. Like if we've had an issue, we went in a couple years ago. Actually, this is a long time ago. We went down to Bowling Green. This was, probably 6-7 years ago, and complete Hindenburg, man. Didn't get the, actually no. The Hindenburg actually flew for a few minutes. We didn't even get the thing off the ground. And we picked up the phone and apologized to everybody. And the big thing is, if you have a dedicated viewership like all three of us do, if you have it and you're honest and straightforward with them, and we never project anybody that we're rolling in there with $1 million operation. We're always very upfront and say we're doing the best we can with the resources we have, and if we fall down a couple times, we apologize to everybody. We thankfully, knock on wood, we've never had anybody that supports us, call us up and harangue us because we didn't do the full job. Well, Bobby, yeah, but he's impossible to please. So.
I lied. We've got one more question from this young lady back here.
What type of cameras do you use?
We use Sony. That's for the most part is what we use, and a variety of models. Okay, it just depends on the position and what we need from that particular camera. So that seems to be the best thing for what we are environment.
And for me, I use Canon cameras. In fact, these two cameras are part of my trackside setup here, these Canon G20s.
We have, so my level of technical proficiency here is going to come right out because it's black and it's square, lens in the front. No, we have a Panasonic, and we have a Canon that we've just gotten that we've begun to use. So both, none of the stuff that we use is not $1 million equipment. There's a lot of great technology. I mean, the cameras that you're looking at here, these tripods, will provide a good experience for people watching.
Gentlemen, we have just seconds remaining. Would you like to thank the audience for their participation?
Well, yeah, on behalf of NHRA D3 TV, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out, and I'd particularly like to thank Brian and Mark for taking the time to come up. I mean, it wasn't like a hop, skip, and a jump to get here. Brian lives on the East Coast, and Mark and Joanne down south for coming and being a part of this, and of course Bobby Bennett, longtime supporter of what we're doing with live streaming, and we couldn't do it without people like Bobby out there helping us to get the message out and be a part of that. So thanks to all of you, and thanks to all of you.
Only thing I add at the end here is just, if you're thinking about doing this, do it. Try it, fail at it, keep trying at it until you can do it right, but do not be fearful of having to come out of the gate like you're NBC News or something.
Yeah, don't worry about that. Just give it a whirl.
You know, when we started Competition Plus in 1999, when you had to convince people that one day you'll be able to take an electronic magazine to the toilet with you, we always built our magazine on, we'll bring you the sights, the sounds, the feel of the drag strip, everything but the smell, and we're working on that. And these guys have brought us closer than ever to our vision of doing that. Thanks for everybody
Thanks,
for coming.
everybody.